Hello everybody. We are going to get started on our week 13 activities, and we have a few decisions to make. So as you've been following along, I've had some queen issues in my weaker hive, and last we spoke, it looked like I was going to need to buy a new queen for this hive for it to survive. Unfortunately, on Thursday of this week, today is Sunday, on Thursday of this week, I found, I was looking inside the hive again, and I found that there is potentially a laying worker. And what that means, unfortunately, so I actually started speaking with a bee supplier, or a queen supplier, I should say. And prior to when I spoke with him, I had not seen the laying worker. And so I was all set to go pick up a queen yesterday. And I actually went out and drove out and paid him a visit. In talking with him, I had mentioned that I had started seeing signs of a laying worker. And immediately at that point, it was apparent that putting a queen in this hive would be a really bad idea, because the colony is already thinking that the laying worker is effectively their queen. So if I go ahead and put in a queen in there that I spent 40 bucks on, they're just going to kill her straight away. So kudos to Bob over at Wetlands Apiary for giving me a ton of knowledge on this whole process of replacing a queen, and the right things to do and obviously the wrong things to do. So in that case, I left without a queen, and I have some things I need to check for in this hive. So on Thursday, I did add a frame of brood, both eggs and capped brood, from my stronger hive into my weaker hive. And in hindsight, this is something I should have done probably 2 weeks ago, or shortly thereafter, that I found that I did not have a queen, because what happens when a queen is when a hive is queenless for an extended period of time, the workers in there will begin to mature their ovaries so that they could actually lay eggs. It's a very interesting thing why that would even work, because when a worker lays an egg, it can only produce male drones. So the hive the colony wouldn't survive regardless. So what I should have been doing is putting in frames of brood, which I guess the pheromones that are emitted from open brood would prevent the workers from essentially becoming laying workers. So lesson learned. Like I said, I hadn't seen those signs of laying worker. Essentially, the way you can see a laying worker is if there are multiple eggs in a cell. A queen would never put more than one egg in a cell, but a laying worker, I don't know if they're just, I don't know why they would do that, but that's the clear sign. If you see 2 eggs in a cell, you have a worker that is laying, and you have a problem on your hands that you need to rectify. So, long story short, what am I going to do? I have a couple of options, and just like any other beekeeping topic, you ask 5 different beekeepers, you might get 5 different answers, but there seems to be a common answer for what you do when you have a queenless hive that has a laying worker, and there's sort of one or two trains of thought. I don't know what I'm going to do today. The first thing I'm going to do is look and see if the frame of brood that I put in the weak hive, if the workers have started building out queen cells. If they have, maybe there's a potential that what I thought I saw were laying workers. Maybe I was wrong, I don't know. So I'm gonna check and just see first. That's my activity for the first part of today. It's already too late in the day. I think it's about 9:15 or so. Foragers are already out, so if anything that I'm gonna do, I would be losing forward. If I do any combining of hives or anything like that, I could potentially lose bees because they're already out and about. So my first part of the day, before I go and do some other stuff for the day, is look in this hive, see if they've done anything on that frame that I added on Thursday. So it's about 3 days ago. Have they built out queen cells on there? If they have, that might be a good sign. Maybe I caught it at the right time. I don't know. This is, again, I'm new at this. I could be completely off my rocker as far as what I'm doing, but trying my best. So I'm going to look at that. If I find they haven't built out any queen cells, that would indicate they are treating the laying worker as their queen, and if I put a queen in there, they are going to kill that queen. So my other option is, or one of my two options is, because I have another hive that is going strong, I can actually combine the two colonies. And there's a right way and a wrong way to do that. The right way to combine the colony is to place a sheet of newspaper between the brood chamber of the strong hive, but like right where that queen excluder is, put a sheet of newspaper. Sometimes some people put two, again, it's debated. Put a sheet of newspaper and then take these boxes, or if I can ideally try to get all the bees out of this box just into that box, put that box on top of that newspaper. And I guess I have the option of keeping the supers on, but putting a piece of newspaper above that as well. And essentially what we're doing is we're combining the hives. If I just did that without the newspaper, the bees from this colony would fight with the bees with that colony. But if you put a piece of newspaper in between them, it gives the time for their pheromones to sort of commingle. And that will reduce or essentially eliminate the chance of them fighting, and they'll act as one colony. The other part is, so if there are, because this colony has a queen in it, and this doesn't, any of those cells that had the two eggs in them, essentially, laying worker cells, this colony will rectify that. They'll take care of those eggs and get things back in order. So what do I do then? I'll have, these 3 deeps, and that's probably too big for going into winter. Most people only will overwinter in 2 deeps, and sometimes 1. So what I can do is, the expectation, again, speaking with Bob and some other people, is that after about a week or so, if I have this body on top of here and they commingle, I could effectively, it's not too late for me to then split them back. So essentially, give them a chance to take care of the laying worker issue. That will cause the workers that are laying, it'll cause their ovaries to shrink back up, so they're not going to lay any more eggs, because they're like, hey, I have a queen down here, we're good, I don't need to do any of that. So it's a crazy thing, but that's I guess that's the recommended method. So like I said, at that point, I would effectively have really one large colony, and I would want to split them back into 2 colonies. And the way I would do that is I would essentially take this deep hive body off the top again, and then at that point, that's when I would go see Bob again and add a queen, because they would obviously be queenless at that point. So this is essentially kind of like a split people would have done earlier in the year when these get kind of packed and you have swarms. So I'm essentially doing the same thing, but now it's middle of June or end of June, early July. So there's still enough time where I could do a split, add a queen, and they could essentially restart. The other option is there's sort of one thing is you can try to shake away the laying worker so that she can't come back to the hive, because the train of thought there is that a laying worker is a very young bee, and she really can't fly. She would have to crawl all the way back to the hive to lay again. So one train of thought, which I don't know if I'm going to do or not, it's debated, is I could take these frames and bring them 50 feet, 100 feet away from my backyard, shake out the bees, and bring the frames back here. And what would happen is only the foragers would make it back. The foragers know how to get back, they can fly, and then any laying workers, if there are multiple, which is possible, they would not be able to crawl all the way back to the hive. That seems kind of crazy, but again, people have done it and they say it's successful, and again, it's debated. So those are the options I have. That's a long sort of summary. So again, the first thing I'm going to do right now is just look through this hive and see what happened with that frame. That's going to be a brief inspection, and then I can do some research, make some calls to my mentor to see what he recommends, and we'll go from there. So we'll see you in a bit. Okay, let's pop into this hive and see what we're up to. I am wearing gloves today because they're a little bit more feisty, and I really don't want to get stung in the hands. It's golf season. A swollen finger doesn't make good for a good golf swing. I'm going to jump right down to the bottom box and see how that frame is doing. And so the frame that I replaced last week was frame 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this frame should have brood on it, and we'll see if the workers have created any queen cells on it. Start by pushing this out just in case there is a queen in here that I missed for the past 3 weeks. I doubt it. And the day that I went in here to replace this frame, it was kind of hard to see in the cells, so I'm pretty sure I saw a laying worker problem. Maybe I was wrong. The lighting's better today, so taking a quick look in this one, which I wouldn't expect there to be anything in there, but no eggs in any of those cells. I'm gonna try to keep an eye out for the queen if she just happens to be alive and has been hiding. This is just a nectar frame. If there is anybody laying, they're not laying here. Let's check out frame 4, and then we're getting close to the one we need to look for queen cells specifically. And so I see, it was frame 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I see a lot of eggs in this guy. And on the bottom, I definitely see signs of a laying worker problem. This is probably the one that I saw last week. Now the top half looks great. There's a lot of single eggs. I'm gonna really bring this out into the sun. It's kind of shady right now, so I'm gonna take a look at this and I'll be right back. All right, let me see if I can show you, hopefully, what I mean by a laying worker cell. And let's see, it's hard for me to see on camera, but on those bottom, I'm gonna go real close. I don't know if it's in focus or not. But in those bottom cells, there are multiple cells with, like, I mean, one cell has 3, 6, 7 eggs in it. Most of the others have like 2 or 3. And then all the ones towards the top, like the top half, have just 1. And the same thing on the other side. When I was looking in the sun, I can see, most just have 1. But there are definitely a few that had more than 1. So, what I thought I saw last week, I guess I was right. Or Thursday, I guess. So let's see what's happening on frame 5 that I borrowed from the Strong Hive. Frame 5, I see our eggs that I brought in last from Thursday, and I don't see any queen cells being made on this side. This side had a mixture of eggs and capped brood, and I guess we have our answer. There's no queen cells being attempted to be made. So we were a little bit too late. And we're gonna have to combine. Even this one, which I brought from that hive, some of the bottom cells now have 2 eggs in them. Which I'm certain wasn't the case. So I don't even have to go through the rest of this box. There's no chance of a queen being in here at this point. So I'll go ahead and wrap this up and get ready for later this afternoon. I will attempt to combine the hives. I'd really like to get all the bees out of that super, or out of that deep into this one, but I don't know how successful I'll be. Let's take a peek in here on this top. See what's even possible for me to shake off all the bees on here. Let me give it a shot. All right. So that wasn't too bad. Put all these frames back, take this box, put it far away, and then this afternoon or later this evening we'll try our first colony combination. Didn't think I'd be doing that in my first year of beekeeping, but here we are. I'm not going to bother putting this feeding chamber back on at this point. And then inside as well. We'll ventilate the top cover at least. And we've got ourselves a small colony that's going to get added to this colony. So the reason why I didn't want to have 2 boxes is if I added these 2 deeps to here, that's going to get like this tall, plus these supers on top, it would just be super high. And, I had left the top deep on, hoping that they would build it out, and as you saw, they haven't really built it out since the queen died, so why bother? We got little baby hive and the queen right hive, and we'll combine them later this afternoon. So let me clean up and I'll do a quick little summary before we catch you back later this afternoon. Welcome back. So I said I would be coming back later this afternoon. This afternoon turned into 2 days later. Today is Tuesday, June 30th. On Sunday I had reduced this weaker hive into 1 box, and I left with having to make some decisions with how to best resolve this laying worker issue. I reached out to a few of my mentors and looked online to see what people have been doing, what's the best success rate, and sort of ultimately coming to a decision what I think is best for my bees. Because at this point, I'm going to take a look again today, but at this point, unless this hive is producing their own queen, they will not survive more than 3 more weeks or so. 4 more weeks, I think, would be sort of the youngest bees would reach their end of life. So I don't want that to happen, to just have that colony go away and just be left with 1 hive. So actually what I'm going to do is combine the hives. So 2 hives become 1. And so what I'm going to do is sort of a, not typically a first year beekeeper task, but it's something that I guess I have to do based on sort of the hand I was dealt. So what I will be doing is taking this deep hive body and sticking it on top of this second hive body. So I'm gonna insert it in between this box and the honey supers, and I will be using what is referred to as the newspaper method, which I think I described in the last segment. I'll place a sheet of newspaper above this colony brood chamber, place that box on top of that, and then put another sheet of newspaper in between that and the supers. And what that's going to do is these bees and the bees around it will have to chew through the paper to essentially become one colony, and that gives them the time to mix their pheromones and whatnot so they do not fight and kill each other. So that will leave me with a pretty large colony, very strong one already. And so given that it's still the end of June, I should have enough time to later in the summer split this colony back down to 2 split this colony back to 2. These 3 boxes, what I'll likely do if this works out, this shouldn't take very long for the laying worker situation to get resolved. Estimates that I've heard is within 3 or 4 days that the queen in here and these bees should rectify the laying worker in this hive. And so I presume what I'll do in about a week, maybe by Sunday or Monday, depending on my weekend, I'll take a look at this brood chamber to see if the double eggs, the triple eggs, that kind of stuff have been cleaned out. And that would be a good sign that the laying worker situation is resolved. And at that point, I could then purchase a new queen and split this box and introduce the queen right away to this new colony, which will then be queenless because the queen will stay in this box. So that's the plan. So first thing I will do is I'm going to take these supers off so I'm ready, and I'll put that sheet of newspaper here. And then what I'm going to do is I have this extra box that I've taken off the top of that hive before. I'm going to take the frames one by one, rather than trying to carry this heavy frame all the way up here. I'm going to take the frames one by one and put them into this box, which I will put up here, again, separated by that sheet of newspaper. And while I do that, I'm just going to take one last look through these frames really closely, just to make sure I don't find a queen, because that would be really bad if I had 2 queens in one box, and make sure and see if there was any queen cells being made in here. Because if the queen cells are being made in here, then I would just leave this as is and see if they could try to start making a queen. I wouldn't, if that's the case, which I think is unlikely, but if that was the case, I wouldn't wait for them to make their own queen. I would just go buy a queen, because it's kind of too late for me to wait for a new queen to mate and fully get things going again. I'd want to kickstart that again. So that's the plan, and I'll set up the camera and we'll get started. Just looking inside here, they haven't really filled out this super just yet. There's some bees in here, but not a lot. Might as well take a look while I'm in here, right? So I'm going to grab my sheet of newspaper and get it ready to stick it here. I don't want these bees to all fly out. This super is quite heavy. And so since the queen can be here, I'm going to have to take a look and make sure she isn't here on the underside of this queen excluder. Okay, so paper down. And told that you can put some slits in it too to kind of expedite the process. So I'm gonna do a few small slices in here in between the frames. I'm told the bees will pretty much chew through this in no time at all. And we have our top. This will be our home for our weekend colony. Okay, I'll grab the other sheet. And I did specifically choose to do this early in the morning, so there's not a lot of foragers out, because foragers are out would not know to come back here, and foragers in this hive actually aren't going to be able to make it into this hive because they will be essentially trapped in here until they chew their way through the paper. But that's the sacrifice we have to make to save a colony. So here we go. Quite a number of bees on this top cover, so we'll have to get them off. Potentially I'll shake them off after I've got the other frames in, so they smell all their friends. All right, give a little puff to get them to settle in, dig down, ready for transport. Let's get started. Starting with the outside frames, which are typically nectar. I wouldn't expect to find any eggs there for me to look for, queen cells, anything of that nature. Frame 2 is a honey and nectar frame. No eggs, same as it's been for quite a while. Frame 3 is usually when I start seeing maybe some eggs, but maybe not. So let's just take a quick look. I can already see signs of the drone cells being formed where they had double eggs, because those are definitely going to be males. So they have not rectified the situation on their own. So this merge is what we need to do. We have a queen cell. Fortunately, I don't know if that's an old one. And without any eggs, that's not really going to help them. So I guess it's a good sign. If there's a queen cell being made, that means there is definitely no queen. I could potentially keep them in here, and they might be able to just, I might be able to just introduce a new queen, but I'm not willing to risk that. So I'm going to first take a video real quick. This is the queen cell right there. It has royal jelly in it, but I do not see an egg. So let's continue as planned. Frame 5 is the one we borrowed from this colony originally. So this one has eggs, or at least larvae, that was from this queen. Let's see if they've turned this to any queen cells. So none of the larvae here that would be eligible for being a queen has been selected and turned into a queen cell. So that other queen cup could have been old. And on this side we have some bees that will start emerging, and then a lot of signs of laying workers. Eggs that are on the side of the cell, and otherwise multiple eggs in a cell. So let's see, there's a whole bunch of bees in this box. Try to get them inside as well and wrap this up. Okay, give them one final opportunity to settle back in with their friends. And we'll get queen excluder paper and queen excluder. I guess I'll put the paper first. pretty well settled out. I mean, there's only a handful of bees left. Let's try to smoke them down a little bit. All right, let's close them in. Okay. Now we clean exclude. Still don't want queen to come up into my supers. Some people might leave this off for now, but it might be gone for a few days. Might not check back until about 6 days from now, 5 or 6 days, depending on the weekend activities. So I want to leave them in a good spot. Back on top they go. So this is about as tall as I want this thing to ever get. I don't want to have to, when this medium gets filled with honey, it's pretty heavy and I'm not that tall. So I think that went pretty well. I'll clean up a little bit and let's do a summary, but we have our combined colony, old colony, or strong colony here in these two boxes. Week 1 inside of newspaper, queen excluder, so we still don't get queen up in our honey supers. And we'll check back in a week and hopefully we can take this guy back off and split. So let me clean up and I'll be right with you. Well, we did it. We have one colony. This is just an empty box now. And first I'd like to say thanks to all the people that helped me out. That includes Tony, my mentor, Bob Hickey over at Wetlands Apiary, and Todd Barker with Barker's Bees. I reached out to each of them. They each gave me pieces of advice, pieces of encouragement. Really couldn't do this stuff without them. So thanks again. Maybe I'll post some links to their sites so that you guys can throw them some support if you are in the area and you are a local beekeeper. Some of the best in the business that I'm fortunate to have helped me through this adventure as a first-year beekeeper. So thanks again. I didn't expect that I would be doing something like this in my first year of beekeeping, but so it goes. So it's exciting. So there we have it. What's next? I will see you probably in about a week. We have the guidance that I've been given is that about 3 or 4 days from now, this whole laying worker situation should resolve itself. So I will check back maybe in 5 or 6 days, to be honest, based on sort of my schedule. And hopefully things look good by then, and I will reach out to Bob to get a new queen, and we will try to split the colony. I'll have to look and make sure that I'm doing that right too, because I don't know exactly all the ins and outs of how to then do a split. I've never done a split either. I'm learning a lot of new things in my first year. So again, it's exciting, challenging, but that's beekeeping. So I will see you guys in about a week or so with hopefully a good update. We shall see. We'll see you next time.